Support Laneside. Get something cool. Good evening and welcome to the Drill Room. As always, I am the Bearded Beast, Rob Johnson, and want to thank you for joining us here in our little social interactive club here on Twitch at twitch.com/Laneside Reviews. Once again, the Drill Room is all about talking about things in the industry, whether it be going out to the layout desk and putting some numbers on some equipment, doing some coaching, or just talking about new events. So why don't we jump into it? Before we do, though, please remember, if you're watching us on Twitch, to give us a follow. Once we get to 50 followers, we are going to be giving away that sweet signed Parker Bone III poster. And then once we get past that, on YouTube, we have once we get to 40 to 50% subscribed. Right now we're at about 34%. We're going to be giving away some jerseys and all sorts of good stuff. So remember to look for us on social media at, once again, twitch.com/Laneside Reviews, as well as YouTube Laneside Reviews. If you go to lanesidereviews.com, it'll bring you to our Facebook, and that'll link you to just about everything else. So why don't we jump right in? We're going to talk about the U.S. Open for this episode. So we're going to talk a little bit about what we saw during play, some of the strategy we saw from Jason Belmonte, and from our eventual winner, SIMO. We're going to talk a little bit about the Arsenal update, what I'm throwing. We talked about it a little bit last week. And we're going to give some first looks, or at least first thoughts, now that we've had a chance to throw all of the new releases. The Double Cross, the Paragon, the Knockout, Black and Blue, and the Eruption. And, as promised, we do have the numbers from the Arsenal talk so that we can go over a little bit more in depth. This way, no matter if you are a speed dominant or rev dominant player, you're going to have something kind of cool to see here. So let's jump in to the U.S. Open. So obviously we talked about it, spoiler alert. Anthony Simonson wins the U.S. Open, becomes the youngest player ever to win 3 majors, beating the prior record by 3 days. And he had quite the task ahead of him when he got to the lanes there, as his first match was, well, arguably the best player in the world, Jason Belmonte. Evening, Vincent. Jason had already won a couple of matches and was looking pretty good, and then he ran into some trouble. So let's talk a little bit about Jason's game plan. In the early part of the games, he was playing a lot of urethane, and looking at his speed and where he was playing on the lane, I think the idea there was to use the black urethane to blend out that pattern. Being that they were on the day 4 pattern, it was still a fairly over-under pattern, and it looked like he was using, I mean, we talked about it in the last episode, how it was potentially really scoreable. You could use some urethane to blend out the end of the pattern, and then it would really kind of open up. And I think that's exactly the plan that Jason went with. He used that pitch black to play in with some slower speeds, a little bit more forward rotation, so the ball wouldn't jump off the end of the pattern. And in doing so, he was going to bring some oil from the front of the lane back. He was going to blend the end of that pattern and hopefully make the reaction a little less, not only over-under, but a little less extreme. Now, the unfortunate part was it didn't really work. He switched over to the Wolverine, and that's a pretty fast response ball already. And with the lanes down lane, it was interesting. The red oil, rather than depositing down lane, it seemed to burn up the front of the lane as well as not really track down lane. So we ended up with 2 hook spots. So when he went to that Wolverine, if you got it in and it saw where it was flatter, you could see it just jump left. Guys were missing the head pin, Brooklyn. But if you missed it at all right, the oil seemed to, rather than blend out, it just seemed to sit. And you can see even the last 2 shots that Jason threw in his game against Anthony, he tried to get it a little bit wider so it wouldn't jump back, and it just never hooked at all. And I think he himself said, he tried something, he made a mistake. That's why you're the best in the world. It's incredible that someone could make that kind of call on show day. And all but for a couple of shots, he was in that title match. So I think that's pretty interesting. Yeah. So like I said, he was hoping to blend out the break point there, but in the end, he ended up making it even more cleft. But it was a lot of friction to the inside and oil to the outside where the pattern had naturally carried down. And oh boy, that's not a recipe. That's not a recipe for good scores. And that continued when we got into the title match, E.J. Tackett versus Anthony Simonson. And, you saw it in E.J.'s ball reaction too. He got really left to try to use that hook point down lane, to try to use that free friction that had been revealed. And it was just, there was too much. The ball was hooking past. He tried, I think he made a ball change the last couple of frames and finally got it to the pocket. But I was actually very surprised that Simonson, he threw a one shot in the 10th frame after he'd already won. But I was surprised when the right lane had gotten so difficult that he didn't switch to a backup ball earlier. Now, he did at the end of the Jason Belmonte match, he switched into a bigger, stronger, slower ball. We've talked about fast response and slow response covers before. Fast response being like your really angular ones, like a Black Widow Ghost. Slower ones being usually the ones they talk about being, lots of flare, really early rolling. That allowed him to not have the ball overreact down lane. When everyone else went to the Wolverine, which was fast response, which means it sees the friction and responds quickly, this ball went down and blended out the pattern much more. It allowed it to not jump left, it allowed him to control the pocket and eventually win. So, as I said, he became the youngest ever to win 3 majors, which is quite the astonishing feat. I think he's 25, and he's already won 3 majors. There are people who are in the Hall of Fame who have not won 3, and they had long careers. So, definitely some Hall of Fame credentials now, if not from before, definitely now for Anthony Simonson. So we talked about the U.S. Open a little bit. The poor players, once they finished up there, they had to get on their horse and head straight to Michigan for qualifying for the event that's going on right now. I believe it's the Storm Cup or something like that. It's in Michigan. So it should be interesting to see if anyone who made the show then makes the show for this competition as well, because this is going to put a lot of stress on them. There was a lot of bowlers coming out of that after 56 games who were already exhausted, and they had the time to travel. So for those who are on the show, it's going to be doubly difficult. So let's move on from there. Let's jump into the Arsenal update, because I haven't seen any questions yet. If you do have any questions, please remember to throw them up. You can throw them in the chat here, or you can send them to us on Facebook or by email at lanesidereviews@live.com. We're going to get to some of those questions before we go too far. But I had promised a little bit of information more on the Arsenal building. Excuse me. When we were at the layout table, we had talked... I kind of went very quickly over the numbers in building this new Arsenal based on the Dell, Warren, and Cagle webinar that I watched. Crinkle, crinkle. with my little water bottle. And I'd gotten a few messages about it, asking if I could put up more detailed analysis of it so that people could actually look at it and write it down or analyze what they've got. I'd already said I was going to do it, so why don't we jump to it? Ooh, I'm a poet and didn't even know it. So let's jump over here. Boop! Look at me, I'm in space! Ooh. Anyway. So here we have the arsenal construction broken down based on a 6-ball arsenal, whether you are speed dominant, matched, or rev dominant. So for instance, we've got Vincent in the chat tonight. He is more of a speed dominant player. So for him, you can see here we've got it all color coded, depending on the length of the pattern. Excuse me, to start off he could go with urethane, solid asim, just depends on the kind of reaction we're looking for. House patterns, most house patterns would be considered in that medium, because there's not enough oil, there's not enough volume of oil to be considered short. So for somebody like Vincent, I'd say 55 by 4 by 65. That would give him a late hook at 1,000 grit, something like a Paradigm or the new Paragon from Track. Not Paradigm, Paragon. Also good would be, let's see here. Conspiracy from Radical, the Quantum Evo from Brunswick, stuff like that. You can see solid covers. I'm just looking at a ball wall across from me here. Solid covers, they're going to get into a roll. They're going to slow down easier. As we know, the ball has to slow down to strike. So, there's two ways we could go here. With the 65-degree val angle, it's going to be a little later. It's going to lay off a little bit. In Vincent's case, he is very low rev. So I would probably go with the 55 by 4 by 30, just giving it a little faster reaction to friction so that it could get into a roll form. Now, from there, a ball up, something that would be a little stronger, that have a little bit more shape. Your fresh ball is just there to, to figure out what you need to play, so your benchmark is going to be in there. As well, it's going to be something that you can control. You can keep in front of you and be able to control the lanes so that you can score on the more difficult lane patterns. Your ball up is when you've got a defined friction point, so you know where it's going to hook. You throw it there, it's going to hook, so we can take advantage of it, open up the lanes a little bit. So for someone like Vincent, we'd go with, and you'll see a lot of these things are true across the bowler style. We go with a hybrid asymmetric, something like a Zenith hybrid would be very good. You can see we've gone with a little bit less surface, a little bit faster response than what we'd see regularly on a medium pattern. So if we thought that, say Vincent was going to play a lot of tournaments, we might go with the medium, the pin down, the slower response ball, than the faster response one for his fresh. But we definitely go with a fast response ball for the fresh. This was one we want to react as soon as it sees the friction. From there, our late hook, this is going to be a ball that goes a little bit longer. It's a little farther down the lane. It doesn't mean it hooks less. It's just going to have some distance to it. For this, we're going to use a pearl symmetric. And you can look along the bottom here. I've actually laid out, and we'll go into a little bit more detail, exactly what we're looking for in each one of these balls. So, for instance, with the speed dominant player on the fresh, low RG, 2.48 to 2.52, a differential of 0.30 to 0.50, pin down for our medium pattern, a solid, we want it to be smoother. We like to have a symmetrical, but for someone like a speed dominant player, as we said, we adjust it to be a solid asymmetrical. to shorten the hook window, make it a little bit more responsive. So the ball up here, you can see 248 to 252, very similar RG. We want the highest differential we can get, so that it's a very small hook window. The ball becomes very angular. Pin up, fast response layout. So these are your pin above, usually pin above the finger. Hybrid, as we said before, a hybrid cover gives us the best of both worlds. In a 6-ball arsenal, when we can't exactly have one of everything, the hybrid allows us, we can either put some surface on it and it'll act more like a solid, or we can shine it up and it'll act more like a pearl, but it just gives us the versatility to play in between. So late hook, that's where we were. Late hook, 65 by 5 by 40, so you can still see a fairly fast response layout for a later hook. We've just used some surface to get the ball to go down farther. We've now moved into a pearl symmetrical. You notice with our speed dominant player, we like to stay asymmetrical where we can, more asymmetricals than symmetricals, just because we need a shorter hook window. For the later hook, we don't need it to be quite as fast, but we need it to continue to hook through the whole thing. Hence why we're using a pearl symmetrical. On the burn, we once again are using a pearl, but this time we're into an asymmetrical. If the speed dominant player is having to move in and really get the ball down lane even with their ball speed, we're still going to need something that's going to it's going to have a bit of a shorter hook window. That's supposed to be 65 by 5.75 by 65, not 654. My apologies. And at 2,000, 4,000 surface, it's going to be fairly weak. So will your late hook. Will be fairly weak when you throw it on the fresh oil conditions, but as they start to break down and you get that defined friction, they're going to hook more and more. And then urethane. Even though we don't like urethane for speed dominant players, what we would want here is one that's fairly strong. 55 by 4.5 by 35, fairly fast response. 1,000 grit, it definitely gets started earlier. I would probably go into an asymmetric urethane for this one. If there was a symmetric, it would have to be a double cross, being it has a bigger core in it. But with the Black Widow Pink that's come out, that has the largest flaring, biggest differential core that you can buy. For urethane, I think we saw it when we did the purple import. It looks better for the speed dominant players just because we can more easily determine the length at which it's going to hook, because that drill angle. So we had something here from Vincent. I've seen my name used for math questions, but this feels different. My teeth are reflecting and they're like disappearing when I smile. That's weird. Yeah, well, I figured you were on here. I would give you a little bit of information there, Vincent. You always watch our show, so I figured I'd do something a little more personalized here. Now, for our matched bowler, that would be more like our scoops. So you can see here in our fresh, still on the sharp pattern using urethane. Urethane for our matched player, you really can choose which one you want, the purple or the Pink Widow or the double cross, just depending on how much total hook you need and where you need it to hook. Now you'll see here for our fresh, for our medium, we have a pin down solid symmetrical. I am not a big fan of pin down symmetricals, I'll be honest with you. But this is not my system, so I'm just I'm relaying the information. In this place, I would be more apt to use an ASIM like a Hammer Tour, Obsession Tour Solid, the brown ball, being that it is a lower differential, low RG asymmetrical, that doesn't have a lot of intermediate differential, as well as not a lot of differential. I think it's like an 030 and like 011. And then putting that pin down, I think you'd find with this layout, that'll put your mass bias just about right on your val line. It'll have a similar reaction to having the weight hole in it, without it running out of steam when it goes through the pins. I personally find that pin down symmetricals just don't tend to get through the pins very well. For long patterns, once again, we've gone with a faster response val angle, and we've gone with an asim. When we need a ball to hook on heavy oil, we want something that's, when it sees the friction, it's going to hook. It's going to react to it, but we don't want it to jump left. That's why we don't go with numbers like 20-degree val. 40 degrees kind of middle of the road. It's going to lay off a little bit, but still see it. Still see the friction down lane. For the ball up, you can see here, still not super fast response for the val angle. 55 by 5 and a quarter, 5.25 for you metric people. By 40-degree val, it's still going to be a relatively fast response. At 2,000 to 3,000 grit, that hybrid asim is going to have some teeth to it. So I know it sounds like it's not going to be really strong, but it's still going to be really strong. And if you need to get it to be a little stronger, you can always add a little bit of surface to it to get it to start up earlier, or take away some surface to get it to go down a little bit farther. Don't be afraid to play with these surfaces, even though I'm using these examples. For late hook, there looks pretty similar to what we see from our ball up, just surface to drive it down lane farther. Once again, playing with surfaces to change our distances rather than the total amount of hook. For the burn, we've got 60 by 5.5 by 65 at 4,000 polished. So if you're a matched player, this is really going to push down lane, but that polish is going to speed up. 4,000 plus polish is going to speed up the reaction once it finds friction. The polish is going to have it lay off the friction. It's not going to absorb the oil. It's not going to quite see it the same way, so it's going to get quite a ways down lane. Like we said with the speed dominant player, our late hook and our burn ball are going to look pretty weak on the fresh, but are going to look better and better as they start to transition. Now your fresh ball, you may only throw for one game. You know, in a 6-game tournament, a 4-game tournament, you may only play it one game and then go right into your ball up or your late hook, depending on the pattern you're on. You'll notice here that we don't have a ball up listed for short pattern or for late hook. Probably want some different shapes. A ball up when the pattern's already giving you a ton of free hook, probably not going to be as useful for you. You might end up throwing in another urethane, or might end up bring a pin down solid asim with you, a second one. So it just depends on the pattern. Question for my shot shape: would the Paragon be better at 1,000 grit compared to just hitting it with 500? Well, that's something that we're going to find out, Vincent. The best thing to do is to get down on the lanes and actually play with the surface. Take a ball and literally, hit it at 500, throw a couple shots. Hit it at 1,000, throw a couple shots. Hit it at 2,000, throw a couple shots, and find the distance that you want that's best for you. We tend to tell people when a ball comes out of the box, hit it with a pad right away. That out-of-box surface is very difficult, if not impossible, to replicate. So by changing the surface right away, you can make something that you can replicate over and over consistently that you can count on. That way you can refresh it to that every time and always know exactly how your ball is going to react. So if you do get a new ball, if you get a Paragon, I would probably start with the 500 and work from there. Last, our Rev Dominant player. That's generally me. So you'll see here, once again, urethane for short pattern. Now this one's very interesting here for the medium. You'll see fairly early, the ball revs up fairly quickly, but really lays off. So we're trying to bleed a lot of energy off of it. We don't want this ball jumping at all. We want it to be nice and smooth. Get into a roll, you know, as quickly as we can, without it still having a ton of energy down lane to jump. You'll see here for our rev dominant player, symmetric here. Generally, your rev dominant players are going to prefer symmetrics. There are not a lot of big symmetrics out right now in the brands that I throw, so that's why you see a solid ASIM here for the long pattern. But, you know, with that new knockout that's come out, the new power torque, those are fairly strong pieces. You could probably throw one of those in there at 1,000 and, depending on the length of the pattern, have a lot of success. Once again, for our ball up, you'll see here we've used a lot of distance in the drill angle. We're taking advantage of that asymmetric core, using that drill angle to really push the ball down lane. Same thing with our pin distance, really pushing it down lane, but it still has a fairly fast response. In our late hook, see, because we are going with a pearl asymmetric that has a lot, or not a lot of surface on it at 4,000, we've brought it back a little bit so we can create a little bit more of an angular shape. For the burn, you can see we really want this ball to lay off. A lot of rev dominant players, they really struggle. I know I do all the time. When the fronts burn up and you just can't get that ball down lane, or you finally get it down lane and it just jumps on you. So this will eliminate that. 20 degree, it's going to start up real fast. 5.5 inch pin to pap is going to push the shape a little bit more hockey stick. 70 degree val angle, that ball's not really going to see the friction down lane, so it's going to kind of, you know, get in there and bleed off. At 2,000 polish, it's going to get down lane pretty well. And for our rev dominant with urethane, 55 by 4.5 by 30, rev dominant is probably going to lean more towards the symmetric, especially the purple. The lower differential will allow them to keep it in play longer, and we all know that it shapes much, much better. So you can see on here, this breaks it down pretty easily for you. When you're looking at your picking up your next piece, you can actually look at the numbers and kind of see where everything fits in. You think about something like the Paragon. The Paragon is very high diff, it's very low RG, it's a slower response solid cover, so that probably fits in really nicely for a speed dominant player, or for a longer pattern for our matched player. Okay, probably not going to look as good for a rev dominant player. They can open up the pattern a little bit more, as we said, so, you know, they might look towards that symmetrical piece. We know with the hybrids, love those hybrids when they come out, especially for sport patterns. You know, when you see those hybrids like the Zenith, like the old Futura from Ebonite, those are pieces that you want for this spot specifically. Now, it doesn't mean that you can't throw a pearl in there. There are certain pearls that fit in there really, really nicely. The Pink Widow Reactive and the White Widow Ghost both fit in there very, very nicely. Same thing with the, let me see here. Some pieces that fit in there where they might not normally. You know, for our speed dominant player, we often see the Tundra go in there. The old track Tundra, where that is a symmetric ball rather than an asymmetric ball. So things will get played with a little bit based on a little bit more of your personal bowling characteristics, and just by, you know, the pattern you're going to be on. These aren't absolutes. These give you an idea of where to start. Once again, play with your surfaces. The more that you play with them, the more you're going to know what they do, and the more you're going to be able to make better choices on the lanes. Okay. So that was the information on the arsenal. Now let's talk about my arsenal. When we last left off, I had thrown a whole bunch of stuff in the bag. I'd kind of thrown some stuff up, told you the idea of where they fit into that, and was waiting to get some oil to try it on. Finally, this Wednesday, League opened for us, and I got a chance to throw a few of them. I also, this weekend, this Sunday, we shot all of our reviews for these pieces, which will be coming out over the next few days. I'm just wrapping up editing them now. But we definitely saw some interesting things from these pieces. Couple of standout points. The Knockout Black-Blue. That is the same core as the Melee Hook. That ball's good. I was looking forward to it. I've said it. Scoops, as soon as he started throwing it, he was like, oh, I really like this. Neither of us have had a lot of success with the blue jab or the purple jab. Scoops had a lot of success with the red jab. It seemed to have a little bit different shape to it. The cover seemed to just read a little bit differently. But they were... He doesn't like pearls normally. I couldn't find a spot for them in my bag. Scoops here, looking at my handy-dandy sheet. Scoops basically struck from everywhere he had the ball. Whether he was trying to throw it flat, whether he was trying to get around it, the ball just struck. Hey, Mobile! Welcome in. Thanks for joining us. So that ball really stuck out in my mind. Excuse me, because of how versatile it was. He went back and forth on the lane and was able to strike at will. The Paragon. Paragon is a strong early ball. I know I did really well with it, but after watching Wayne and watching Scoops throw it, I went from my benchmark spot and I moved 10 left really quickly. Because I knew this was the kind of ball that I could open up the lane with. For a house shot, it wasn't my favorite because we have, like most house shots, there's not a lot of oil there, so it forces me left a little bit too far early. For sport patterns, that thing's going to be awesome, and for speed dominant players, holy moly, is that thing going to be awesome. Very surprising. It still had a fair amount of shape. Even though it's an early ball, it still had a fair amount of shape down lane. I know Vincent was watching it when we were throwing it, and he was like, oh, that makes me want that ball even more. It's good. It's really good. The double cross is exactly what you would expect from a urethane ball, a big, strong one. I don't have the exact numbers on it, but it looked to be 4 or 5 feet earlier than the purple, a little bit smoother. That core really picks up in that ball. It makes a big difference. And then the Eruption. The Eruption was the one that we really had no idea about. It was the one that I kind of wavered on how I was going to lay it out. We talked about how it's supposed to blend out the pattern, but I never got to throw it. When the first ones came out, I didn't know what kind of reaction to expect. It's a really interesting one. When we threw it as a more forward, the ball reminded me a lot of the Intel Pearl, where it was super clean, and even though it was a pearl, it didn't really read the spot down lane really quickly. So it was a really gentle motion. But when you got around it, man, does the thing break open. It hooked more like... I'm trying to think what it more almost reminded me of, like the Medusa, but just not quite as small of a hook window. The Medusa being from Deviate, so it can be actually fairly strong. But I mean, this is where we talk about blending at that lane. You can really, the roll on it with that cover stock, it never over read down lane. So it was very surprising. Very, very good ball. Hopefully coming in the next couple of days, we'll have the new stuff, the 3D offset, the Pink Widow, the GB4. Oh, there's another one I'm forgetting. Oh, the Deviate Collision. I know that one is good. Parker Bone the Third. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of that guy. He's kind of good. Ball hasn't even come out to the public yet, and he already won a regional with it. Like, he just rolled over a PBA 50 with it. So I'm excited to see that one. See if that replaces my results pearl in my bag in my ball up spot. So let's see here. Okay. So I'm going to open it up to questions. If there's any questions out there, I'm also going to head out to social media and grab some of the questions we got this week. Once again, if you have any questions, please don't forget to send them in here to our Facebook. You can find us at lanesidereviews.com or send it to lanesidereviews@live.com. You can also hit our socials through Instagram, through TikTok, through Twitter, all over the place. Just look up Laneside Reviews. So let's see here. Let's go to Business Suite, Facebook. Let's go to the inbox here. We talked about Joshua last time. Oh, I remember. Scotty sent us something. Scotty commented on something. Just gotta find it here. Oh, he had mentioned that he didn't use the Igniter Pearl. He used the Igniter Solid. Just to let you know, Scotty, that the balls will react fairly similarly. Just the Solid will be a little bit smoother than the Pearl. The Pearl will be a little bit cleaner through the front, a little more angular down lane. But everything else we said about it is gonna be exactly the same. YouTubes. Oh, and don't forget to check us out on Patreon. We do have virtual coaching as well as arsenal building. We can do specifically for you. Comments. This is the most dangerous place in the world. YouTube comment section. From Scotty Thompson. Will the new USB-C rule affect bowling leagues? He's talking about. I think he's talking about either the new PBA rule, where on the PBA tour you won't be able to use plugged equipment anymore. That doesn't count the PBA 50 or those style events, just for the regular tour. That does not affect leagues at all. As for urethane, the change for urethane, the softness change, it shouldn't change your leagues at all. Basically, they just can't construct any more equipment with the lower durometer rating anymore. If you already own it, it'll still be legal for you unless tournament says otherwise. So you should be good. From Dead Polymers. So what happens when the pro shop operator messes up the drilling for new ball? Oh boy, that's every pro shop operator's nightmare. Do they just scrap the ball entirely and drill a brand new ball? I've seen 2 examples recently of PBA pros who had used plug bowling balls in brand new balls to fix drilling errors. Okay. So when the new USB-C rule came out about weight holes a few years ago, I made a couple of phone calls really quickly saying, so are plug balls being banned from use? And the higher ups at USB-C were like, well, no, why would plug bands be illegal? That's not right. And I happened to mention and say, hey, well, you know what stops me from drilling a weight hole and then filling it in as a drilling correction? Still totally legal, just not on the PBA tour now. If a pro shop operator honestly messes up with a ball, that's on them. Generally, the operator will have to replace the ball for you. Generally, what they'll do is they'll take that ball and they'll fill it and try to sell it on their used rack to recoup some of the money from their screw up. But yeah, if they screw up, if they legitimately screw up your ball, they're going to have to fix it for you. Now, if a pro shop operator makes an error and drills a hole someplace it's not supposed to be, really there aren't any rules for it currently under USBC. It's a conversation I had with Mo once. What is to stop me from drilling a motion hole in a brand new ball and then filling it and saying, oops, drilled it in the wrong spot? As long as plugged balls are legal, that issue is always going to come up. It's been coming up since I think the dawn of plugging equipment. People putting metal slugs in it and being worried about that. People putting voids in. There's so many different things you can do. I applaud the PBA. I think it's really good that on the Pro Tour, which is supposed to be the highest level of competition, only newer equipment is used. By removing all of the re-drill or the plugged equipment, you're eliminating a huge amount of issues that could come up later. It also means that you don't have to worry about a lot of those older pieces that have been grandfathered in over time, like the Phantoms. You're not going to see a lot of those come up because brand new in-box pieces that are 20 and 30 years old just aren't as available as they used to be. I've heard they're not making them anymore. So I think it's... I think that if a pro shop operator is doing that, first of all, they're very smart. But they have to be aware that anytime you plug a ball and drill in like that, you are adding stressors to it. So you could technically increase the chance of cracking. Also, by filling the ball, you void the warranty. So if something happens to it, the company who made it aren't going to help you anymore. Outside of that, that's really interesting. That's maybe one of those things that Brunswick could look up. Get the old Throwbot out there and start drilling and filling some holes and see what kind of weird things can be done. Because I'm sure there you could have a lot of fun with an 1.25 inch hole an 1.25 inch hole in the back of the ball in the spot where the motion hole would go, taking core material out, but refilling it. You wouldn't have to worry about the 3-ounce difference top to bottom. Ooh, I kind of like that. Don't give me ideas. But yeah, that's for the most part, if a PSO legitimately screws up on your ball, they got to replace it. Now, there are some things. There used to be, I know you used to be able to get insurance as a pro shop operator, so that if something happened, you'd get some leeway, some better pricing on replacing some stuff in an emergency. But that hasn't been around in years, and it was extremely, extremely limited. Dead Polymers also wrote, would like to see a weaker urethane cover from Brunswick & Company. The Purple Hammer is too much cover for my house. The Double Cross and Pink Widow will probably be the same. Yeah, have you thought about the Twist? The Twist and the Rhino. If we go back to the PDF here, the Rhino fills in that late hook section really nicely, and the Twist actually fits into the burn ball in a really nice spot as well. Other balls that fit into that late hook or even burn ball section, you think about the Storm High Road, the Igniter, the Turbo R, and the Nitrous. Just off the top of my head, I think the Hustle line fits into that as well. There's quite a few of them on the market. But yeah, I would like to see a performance. I'd actually like to see a performance ASIM in a weaker cover like that. 900 Global had one out a few years ago. I think it was the Afterburner, maybe not the Afterburner, something like that. It was like yellow and red. Scoops loved that ball. It was an ASIM with a weak cover. That could be really nice for playing the burn with, or even into the late hook. Like you could play around with it and bury the thumb to really raise the differential and play with it. Like, there's all sorts of neat things you can do. From Corbin, Double Cross is my first urethane. I've only got one game on it, but it's a great ball. Love it. Glad to hear it. It is a strong urethane ball. A lot of people don't know urethane. You tend to get better results hitting a different spot in the pocket than you do with reactive resin. Urethane tends to carry a little bit better higher on the pocket, where resin you get a little bit better cover or carry from the center to light. So just one of those little tips thrown out there. Vincent threw out here, I'll have to use my twist next Sunday league to see how it reacts to a burnt lane, but is there a ball out there like the mix? The mix is a funny one because it's urethane plastic hybrid, so there's not a lot like that out there in the market. Definitely be for your game 4, your later games when they get burned up. Yeah, I could definitely see you throwing that. Let's see, what else do we got here? Oh, hey, Corbin also let us know he finally got his big shim drilled. You got 3 balls drilled up. We're just waiting to hear from you, buddy. My friend Chris McAlpine also got one drilled up, and I've been really looking forward to hearing how he liked it. Now that we finally have the lanes open, he can actually throw it. And I think that might be it for questions this week. Answer a lot of stuff on quickly online, so I'm often answering my own questions before I get to the show. I'm really bad for that. I had somebody asking about getting a ball that's more versatile. Definitely the Trailblazer. He wants something that was going to go down lane and hook, that he could shine up and hook, or put some surface on and get it to be a little bit earlier. Trailblazer, ASIM, hybrid. Go figure. Another one of those balls that fits into that spot. How does the double cross compare to the new stuff? We did take the time, when you see the double cross video, we did in fact throw the purple and the purple widow, so you can see how the double cross stacks up against the other 2 major pieces of urethane that we've got. When we get the pink in, what we'll do is we'll probably do a little short video of all of us throwing all 4 of them. Do one of those cool overlays that everyone likes, so you can see how they stack up. Somebody who wants to buy my Helix? Nope. Yeah, nope. Yeah, that Helix is never leaving me again. You have to pry it out of my cold, dead hands. I really like that ball. Oh, somebody just commented on it. I remember seeing one of these bowling years ago. Memory serves, they shot 300 with it. Oh, good for them. The Helix is a fun ball. That urethane strip got it to start up really early, but then the reactive, when it flipped over to the reactive side, being a little bit more shined up, it really saw the friction down lane, so you could create some really unusual shapes. Walter Ray threw the heck out of that ball. He loved that ball. Yeah, a lot of stuff we've covered before on stuff, so I'm not going to go through all that again. Boop. So that looks like that's going to be about it for us this week. Once again, I want to remind everybody that we are postponing our show on Thursday this week. I've got some other stuff that's going on, so I don't want to leave you in a lurch and maybe be here, not be here. I'd rather just, give you my commitment. maybe if we're really lucky, I'll get a hold of Mikey, finally, because I keep forgetting to message him. Mikey is back in and bowling, thankfully, so hopefully we can get him on the show. And if there's any pros you would like to see, please let us know. Once again, you send them to our social media. But I think that is about it for us tonight. So, I think I'll wrap it up here. Once again, I want to thank everybody for coming out and joining us tonight. If you have any questions on the stuff we covered tonight, especially in that Arsenal building, please give us a shout. Love to talk more about it with you. And if you have anybody that you'd like to see on the show, please let us know. You can contact us at lanesidereviews@live.com. Yeah, that's about it. This has been an awesome show, guys. I really appreciate everyone sending in the messages and questions. And keep it up. I'm looking forward to seeing you guys next Tuesday. Next Tuesday, we're going to be shooting a little bit later. We're going to go for 8 p.m. That's going to be our new Tuesday time. It's going to be 8 p.m. I had a few people message us this week saying that they really want to join us, but 7 is just a little early. They don't get off until 8, so we're going to try to accommodate a few more people. So they better join. I'm going to be really angry. Grr. But yeah, that's about it. Thank you very much. Don't forget to check out our sponsors. We use only Turbo products here for our grips and our interchangeable thumbs. We use very specifically our True Cut pads from CTD. They give you the truest surface of any pad on the market. As we said, if you want to be able to replicate your surfaces and be able to count on your reaction, use the True Cut pads. You'll see them out on the tour. You'll see people like EJ Tackett use them himself. So you know they're good. And don't forget to use our coupon code Johnson at I Am Bowling. Lots of new jerseys, lots of stuff going on. Smash the subscribe button. We want to get to 40 to 50%. It's only about 6-7% to get to it on our subscriptions on YouTube, and then we're going to start our contest. And don't forget to follow us on Twitch. Once we get to 50, we're going to give away that poster. So, until next time, guys, we'll see you inside.
Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss a show. So until next time, guys, we'll see you laneside.
Oh, look at that sexy beast. Look at that sexy beast. Apparently I shot this a year ago. That's not possible. Oh, there's that Paragon. Rob learned to shape the ball a little. Very little. Man, that thing looks good. Yeah, that Paragon. Super traction-y. Love that reaction. Love that reaction.